So our next topic is on scalability. Great tools have always been cheat codes for growth. The ability to scale is key to business success. And for today's conversation, we have three fantastic panellists, Jonathan Patchell, Justice Sage, and Kirsten McIntosh. So thank you and welcome to the stage. They should be on. I might start with you, Kirsten, because you're raring to go. Would you like to please describe your organisation, Trailed, and your role in Trailed, and the significance of deep accounts payable tech processes versus simple one-dimensional options?
Thanks, Brendan. Yeah, I'm Kirsten McIntosh. I'm the Director of Channel Enablement and Partnerships at Trailed. So Trailed is a company that our mission is to eliminate fraud and all your B2B payments. And so how Trailed actually came about, because the two co-founders of the company actually experienced this. So 21% of all Australian businesses, small businesses, actually have experienced or experiencing invoice fraud just in the last year. So one of our founders, he was running the accounts payable function in a very big WA business. He paid an invoice that was fraudulent and they lost $100,000. Our other co-founder, they actually experienced business email compromise, where somebody pretended to be the uncle of the business who was on holiday, sent in a request for some money, and that went outside the country. And so once you've got money outside Australia, it's very, very hard to get back. Now, both of these guys said, look, we have all these protections on our credit cards. If you go to overseas, you've got to let your bank know and they get stopped. At that point in time, there was no software that they could find that would do the same thing for the accounts payable process. And you think about how much money is going through your business in accounts payable every year, and none of those protections. So that's actually how Trailed came to be. So what Trailed does is that we started with the background of fraud protection. We want to make sure that every supplier that you pay is the right supplier and they're getting the right amount. We also move into automation around your accounts payable, and we also do the approvals process. And you asked about what's the difference between accounts payable and accounts payable automation function in us, is that we are able to do that all in a single platform. You don't have anybody, we're integrated with, the big RPs, obviously like MyOb, Acumatica and Xero and AccountRight. And we've got some other ones coming, Syspro and Epicor. But the whole idea is that you can actually see that whole process rather than having siloed processes around your accounts payable, making sure that your fraud is actually integrated with a daily process.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, do you want to just give us a quick introduction to Connection and just discuss briefly the challenges around delivering and implementing technology without overwhelming your operations team?
Sure thing. So I'm Jonathan Patchell, one of the co-founders of Connection with Courtney and Casey there. Thank you so much for everybody attending today. Really appreciate that. So Connection is a business that really focuses on field force management. So any customer out there, you might have heard Courtney say this morning, sort of dirty and dangerous industries. Also, really any company with a field force that has mobile connectivity. Connection is really like the base hub of all the information coming back to one central source of truth, and then we can distribute that throughout other platforms, tying everything together, ultimately creating the one system with an accounting package. There's so many different areas that we deliver on in Connection, but that's across multi-facets, which are compliance is a big one, WHS, complex areas when it comes to payroll, the bits and pieces that other platforms really don't deliver on, especially accounting platforms, because they're really bespoke to certain industry types. So Connection really, peels back the layers of those industries and understands the requirements deep in those industries, so we can deliver on that in the most efficient way with data intelligence.
Fantastic, thank you. Sage. So again, if you could just briefly introduce the company Sage. Sorry, Justice, my sincere apologies. Introduce Sage as the company. And something that you find most impactful about using automation and integration to help a business scale.
Yeah, thank you for that. My surname is awfully close to Sage, and it often raises some interesting conversations with clients. So Sage as a business has been around for the last 40 plus years, originating out of the UK. We've spent that time working with finance teams across 27 different countries and really focusing on providing technology to empower the finance department to do more within their businesses. For some of you who are a bit older than myself in the room, you'd be familiar with some of our legacy technologies that we've had in market for decades, particularly in the construction space. Names like Timberline and Sage CRE may be familiar to some of you in the room here today. What's been pretty impactful for us over the last 40 years, as you can imagine, we've seen technology evolve quite rapidly over that time. And being in a position to actually leverage the latest technology to enhance that customer experience for our clients around the world has just been quite exciting. And in more recent time, the advent of technology like AI, that's been very topical in a lot of the sessions today, is only helping us further enhance that mission. So that's a bit of an intro around Sage. And the second part of the question, please.
What do you find most impactful about using automation and integration to help a business scale?
Yeah. So our CTO at Sage, Aaron Harris, often talks about our mission as a company to elevate the role of humans within the organization, and specifically for finance teams. One of the things that we find when we poll CFOs across the different countries you operate within, they all tell us that their businesses are expecting them to do a lot more than they've ever done before. The role is constantly evolving, and the climate that they find themselves in is shifting very rapidly. So there's a ton of pressure that's coming down on the finance team to deliver more and more value to the organization. The ability to do that is often hamstringed by lack of processes and lots of manual tasks in a lot of workflows for the finance team. So we often find some of the clients that I work with, they tell me their month-end process takes 2 weeks, sometimes up to 3 weeks. And by the time they're done with month-end, all they can provide is basic financial statements for the business. And the reality is financial statements tell a great story, but they don't tell the holistic story of your organizations and the complexities that you deal with and the experiences that your customers have. So with the climate that we find ourselves in, there's more pressure for organizations to be able to tell a more holistic story about where they fit into the world, and really importantly, be able to tell that story in an accurate, timely, and relevant manner to different stakeholders across the organization. So by being able to automate processes, we're on a mission to eliminate the month-end process. That's one of the key goals that our CTO often talks about. And for many years, this was a dream. It's been our North Star for a while. Aaron Harris spoke recently about how the advent of AI technology has actually brought that dream into reality for us. So now it's no longer this far-fetched into the future vision, but it's actually something that we feel like is actually going to be a lot more attainable sooner than we ever thought it would be. So by being able to automate a lot of processes for the finance teams, we're finding that that month-end process can be eliminated, so it can be shortened at this stage quite significantly. So the experience I've had with some of my clients is they go from having a 2-week close to a few days close. And what that now means is the finance team now have a bit more bandwidth to actually spend sitting with stakeholders in the business and talking about how they could do things better, how they could better serve the different clients. And in addition to that, we're now able to surface information in a timely manner to these different stakeholders in a way that really makes sense to them, right? So not everyone works well with a big spreadsheet with numbers on it. Some of us are a bit more visual. And by being able to automate a lot of tasks, we can get one step closer to doing that.
I'm seeing a lot of businesses focusing at the moment on trying to eliminate the toil of getting analytics and information to executives. And I think that is extremely powerful when you can achieve it. One of the other major innovations that is happening in real time is big data. And Jonathan, I'd be interested to know your views on what strategies you use to address data silos within an organisation, especially disconnected workforces.
Yeah, well, inside Connection, we try to either create a data silo or just destroy them. Some companies love data silos, and especially around like WH&S and sensitive areas of employment contracts and things like that. A lot of data silos want to be created, and restrictions of multi-sites. Not having cross communications in those sort of areas, whereas other organisations really like to open that up and have it in the one place. Creating a data warehouse is one way to overcome that information, and then you can use really smart BI tools like Focus and other tools like that that can actually really drill into those and then create those visualizations, as Justice was sort of saying before. And yeah, basically data silos can be helpful, but also not so.
I'm intrigued by the start of your question. So a question from me, how do you know when a data silo is good and should be created and when it's bad and should be destroyed?
That's listening to the customer and the requirements of the business, really. Some customers that we deal with are multinational, some customers deal with are international. So sometimes in those data silos, there's multilingual information, then we have to use translation tools to move that across. So yeah, it's really on the structure that we're actually designing for that particular customer, is really the schematic that we'll actually then implement.
Fantastic, thank you. Chris, the other one that's a major transformation or change at the moment is around the way we integrate, especially systems integration. So what's the importance of integration in digital design when you're actually focusing on scalability?
So when you look at, integration is probably, everybody knows how important it is for every business, right? And traditionally in the past, we did have nice, neat silos of information, and because that's where the teams were located, or that's where the function worked, and also they did need important checks and balances, and those checks and balances are still really important when it comes to personal identifiable information or company sensitive information. But that integration ultimately is about your digital transformation, which is obviously what people like Connection do. And the idea that you can actually get a holistic view of what's actually happening in your business. So for us, we wanted to make sure that the accounts payable process was integrated all the way through. So your accounts payable people can send the information to the approvers. The approvers can see if they are high-risk invoices or not. And your CFOs can then see, well, what's going on with these suppliers? Are we actually paying the right people the right money at the right time? So those sorts of things are really important with integration. And what we do as the other integration that for us is very important, you talked about AI and data lakes. We actually integrate with the supplier master data in their ERP, whether it's Xero, Acumatica, whatever, and we also have government reference checks. So we integrate with those, and you can actually benefit from that information to see whether the supplier you think you're paying actually is being paid by the entire ecosystem in that same way, and whether they are a legitimate company, and whether this is a high-risk invoice. So we would say we have what we call always-on AI, and that actually has a huge advantage at a multiplier effect for every single customer we work with.
Chris, where else do you see AI at the moment being used around cost management?
There's AI for us is actually also being used in the automation speed, and I'm sure everybody else is using that way. There's a huge amount of time that can be saved because the AI can actually read an invoice and decide, whether or not, is it the right details that's going through. And has been in the past a super manual process for people. So now your team can actually spend something like 85% of that time reduction in doing that very manual process. With regards to how else we use it, we can see it in lots of different ways coming up. The team is actually talking about it right now, so it's pretty exciting to think about.
It's absolutely fantastic to see some of the ideas coming out around how you can not only get costs out of the business, but actually speed business up significantly, similar to the conversations from this morning. A question to all of you, but I'm going to start with Justice. What are the hidden risks involved in what we're talking about? These technologies allow us to scale so much faster than we have in the past. So what kind of risks are we looking out for that we need to make sure we're managing as we're implementing these new technologies?
Yeah, so there was a few interesting points that came out from the earlier discussion when we were talking about CX. Just before I answer the question, maybe by show of hands, are there any accountants in the room? Yep, there's one. Okay. So I work a lot with accountants, as you know, that's where our technology is really focused, around the office of the CFO. One of the things that is really interesting about Sage, we are a listed company first, and we're run by accountants as a business. So our CEO, for example, is our former CFO. Our manager, MD for this region, is an accountant himself, and this is not in any of our formal publications out there, but I feel like we're a very conservative organization, and that's my observation with it. And to that point, when we started rolling out artificial intelligence into our technology, before we started writing any lines of code or building anything, we actually took a step back and came up with our 8 guiding principles as the first step before any development work was done. And the first of those guiding principles is trust. So we want to make sure that any investments that we're doing and technology that we're rolling out is not going to erode trust in Sage as a business, and really importantly in our technology. Why that is so important is because if you're using AI in a CX instance, for example, the impact may not be as, not always, but sometimes it may not be as impactful as a decision that is made incorrectly leveraging AI that impacts your financials, right? So our clients really rely on financial data for compliance and governance purposes, and really importantly, to make decisions that could have real cash implications to businesses and different stakeholders that they work with. So that's the approach that we've taken. When my clients are looking to roll out AI within their organizations, I think probably stopping to think about that longer term picture of what are you actually trying to achieve with this tool, because that's really what technology is at the end of the day. It's a tool to help your organization on your growth journey, and coming up with those guiding principles around what are the core values for your clients and what do you stand for, and making sure that whatever investments you're making actually align with that is probably a way to start off the process.
John or Chris, would either of you like to have a go at that question? Happy to move on to another one. The question's around key risks in the implementation. So all of these technologies, AI, big data, integration, are all accelerating the pace of change. What are the risks that we're managing to make sure the change is actually successful?
Change implementation in technology it's so important. You just don't really realise, and the larger the organisation, the more complex it becomes as well. So it's a whole marketing campaign basically for change within inside the organisation. We attack it as an organisation in 2 ways, basically from the top and from the bottom. We find the most successful integrations start from the bottom up, actually. Believe it or not from the top down. If we can drive change in the workforce that are in the field, and then they actually have trust in the system because it's reliable and it's easy to use, and it helps them personally, then we drive an immense amount of change rapidly, fast within the organisation, actually pushing management to then change as well. We've tried it both ways, and definitely bottom up works best. When it comes to implementation, the best thing that we've found as well by experience is segregated micro deployments in the application as well. Not trying to do everything in one hit, and it's a bit of an argument, especially like with some accountants, because they just want to change the whole place in one big hit, like like changing your accounting package. But it's not like that at all. It's a scalable thing to do, and you're affecting everybody's work path, what they're doing on a daily basis. So the change implementation in micro stages is really important. Not only it's listening to the feedback. Really, you've got to listen to the feedback of the people on the ground. The people are using it every day. If you can then make their life happy just by changing a colour, or making this bolder, or making this workflow a little bit better, because the system's evolved with them and with their feedback, they've got buy-in. And once you have the buy-in, you're going to have successful projects. That's what we've found.
I would say that's exactly what we would do. That's exactly what we would do as well. We actually sit down with every customer and we talk, and it's like, tell us about your process right now, so we can actually understand where you are spending time, what's the pain points for you all. It's basically customer service. We want to make sure that what we're doing can be customised to them. So we can actually customise, give different additions for construction and logistics and distribution and manufacturing. We can make sure that your supplier codes are all the same, your projects are all the same. So you actually feel like you're actually creating a system that is going to be better and more efficient for you. It still is fundamentally what your business still needs to do. And you can't, if you can't do that, you are not improving the customer experience, and we shouldn't be there. Actually, I might just set that in front of my head of sales. Maybe she shouldn't let me say that.
Last question from me before I let others have a turn at asking questions that you've got. And again, to everybody, what's one thing you're actually excited to see in the future that's coming around scalability and technology innovation? What are the symbols you're looking for?
Obviously, going back to the silos and things like that in the way of data, creating a massive amount of information and then be able to interrogate that with AI, and creating, really insights that you wouldn't know as a business is really what I'm most excited about for our customers as well. Because, the amount of data that we do gather, but I do feel a lot of it is wasted in some ways. Because it's just so hard for us to create all the analytical reports and things like that, and display them in the way that we want. I think with the new technology, with the new introduction of AI, and all the prompts and everything that we discussed today, having them more accessible to our customers is really what I'm excited about, and it will just make the products better, and not just across our platform. That's all platforms that we have, and in day to day. Like everybody here, you probably, my email box gets swamped every day, and I'm fighting against 70 emails or something coming in per day. 30% of them are junk, but still can't get that right. What's good and bad? And someone goes, "Have you sent you that email?" You go, "Never seen it. Must have gone into junk." But yeah, to get that better, I think that's going to be better for all of us. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Maybe just to add to that, I'm constantly finding that I'm having to readjust my timescale for horizons. I used to be excited about what's coming in 4 or 5 years' time, and I'm finding that we have to pull back that timescale to 12 months away and 6 months away. It kind of makes your palms sweaty just to see how quickly it's all moving around us. What I'm pretty excited about is kind of 3 key pillars that we're working towards with the AI tech that we're building. So the first thing I mentioned already, we're working towards getting to a point where we can automate as much of your day-to-day transaction workflows to eliminate that month-end close process. And a really critical part of that, especially for financial data, is being able to have continuous audit of the transactions as they go in. A key challenge that often slows down month-end for finance teams is having to go back and interrogate data that's already been booked into their system, reverse things that were entered in correctly, and re-put them in. And if you've got a system that doesn't allow you to just do edits for whatever reason, you've got to delete transactions and recreate them. And it just adds this whole layer of complexity. Now, can you imagine a world where systems now talk to each other through API integrations? If you've got bad data coming in from third-party systems into the core finance system, the amount of rework that has to be done at some point actually defeats the purpose of integrating systems in the first place, right? So what we're actually doing as part of this is providing that continuous audit of transactions as they come into the finance system and picking up outliers and starting to prompt you in real time, just to again help you get to a point where when you get to end of month, you don't have this mountain of work to go through to try and reconcile. So I kind of see us getting to a point where we will actually have tools built into our technology that will have domain expertise. And I often see in organizations that are very early adopters of tech, the CX team can easily run off and start to use, really exciting tech, even simple things like using ChatGPT for some of your copywriting, right? All of that can happen. And the finance team sometimes feels left behind, right? And just start questioning, what can we do as a finance team to also jump on the bandwagon and start to leverage this technology? The reason that's a bit hard for finance teams to do is there's a level of domain expertise that's required. You need to understand debits and credits. You need to understand what the movement on the P&L actually means to the balance sheet. And without that level of accounting domain expertise, an AI bot would just not be very helpful in providing any kind of insights. So what we're doing is building that domain expertise into our tech, and then allowing it to actually query your specific data sets and start to give you insights as you go. So we'll probably get to a point where we'll start to have bots built in. We're working on what we're calling Sage Copilot, for example, that will actually ride shotgun with you as a user of the system and start to help you make decisions based on your financial data.
I'd like to just jump on that quickly and and reiterate it, but I'd like to push it towards a little bit more around fraud, because I said, our company's mission is to eliminate fraud in all business-to-business transactions. And Simon, this morning, I was talking to him before his great chat this morning with us. He said, can you really eliminate it? And I said, well, look, we're certainly working it, but what I'd love to see is that that customisation of using AI, so that every single company who is working with us has zero invoice fraud. And every single company, because it knows their company so well and their supplier, how they pay them. And we are pretty close to that. And that's obviously not everywhere around the world, but that's how I would love to see that customization of AI is going to get more and more, that level of expertise around fraud detection, I think is what's going to be super interesting, because it will say, it's going to stop businesses from going under, which is what we are seeing happening with invoice fraud and things. And because it just, business email compromise, that's what our mission is and that's what we want to do.
Thank you. So what questions do you have around scalability and technology innovation on business scale? Anyone got a first move?
Maybe one for Justice to start with. Has automation and or AI helped to sort of reduce the cost of implementation of your product into new businesses? Is it helping that way at all?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we implement our technology through business partners, who some are in the room here today. Thrive Technology, for example, you can have a chat with. We are rolling out technology to help, particularly with things like a data migration for those clients who are moving off of systems into our platform. And some of the use case we're working through as well is with a new Copilot that we're building. It's designed to also help with some of that initial configuration and setup of the system. Yeah. The big cost saving that we're seeing today with the tool sets that clients are actually leveraging are actually client facing. I'll give you a simple example. Within our professional services clients, for example, we often found that revenue leakage would happen where people would, especially business, fill out timesheets. People would fill out timesheets as when I used to work in professional services, my timesheeting was a creative writing exercise on a Friday afternoon, and I'd often forget work that I'd done earlier in the week. So we now have an AI engine built into our tech that you can actually install on your machine, allow it to read your email calendar, for example, and pick up meetings that you've had, And when you go to write your timesheets, it gives you a starting point, and it recommends, I saw you had a meeting with this client, this was the topic, this must have been this particular task on the project, and you spend 2 hours. And the impact for our clients with that has just been, we're seeing upwards of about $10,000 on average saved from revenue leakage from the clients who are using that tech.
Alex, I suppose with scalability comes the opportunities to identify new insights from all the data that's being collected within a business. Have any of you started picking up or seeing these future signals as a business grows or as new data is input into a business that otherwise business owners would not have considered to be useful or even valuable information?
Yeah, definitely. The more information we can gather inside the databases and then create the analytical reports, the more value the systems become. So,
are there any examples that you can potentially share of something that has come across a business and you've gone, I never would have considered that as an opportunity?
There's so many, but I mean, in our industry, asset utilisation and things like that is just so important. And that's to feed in not just by human input as well, that's by machine input. So IoT and things like that and connected devices feeding information into your database and into the equipment information and showing the utilisation of certain equipment and where they are and what location, how they were transported there. Well, all the better ways to learn in the future than to put the processes in place to save costs in the future. Wonderful insights, yeah. So, and also on the other question as well, we're finding there's a huge amount of ways that we're actually saving on implementation costs using AI. One of the things is we used to use a lot of human labour to create forms. Some of these safety forms and checklists, which I know you've got there are 1,000 fields in these forms. 1,000 that people have to fill out. Now, originally we had to use humans to actually create each one of those fields. And originally that came when it was a piece of paper. Now we can actually feed that piece of paper directly into the AI engine, and it can create the prompts and then also the fields that we can put back into the database system that we can then fill out on our phones and tablets and things like that. So, the labour content I think is saving a lot. And like you'll see later on tomorrow, we've put these videos together using guides and things like that. And the guides that run over the systems that now prompt the users for instructional information, these used to take weeks to put together for customers. Now we're putting together them in days. So, it's amazing what's happening right now as we speak.
Thank you very much. Please thank Jonathan, Justice and Chris for their input today.